Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today for the Sea Grant Water Resources Network All Hands Call. We are recording this and we'll make the recording available if we have individuals that wanted to participate that might not be able to today. But thank you for joining us. And we have a fairly short agenda today, but which leaves us quite a bit of discussion time, which will be good. First, we're going to talk about some quick updates. Then we want to spend the majority of our time talking about the survey findings and a discussion of next steps from the prioritization survey that we did in December and January. And then finally, we have some additional announcements for everyone. We will be using Poll Everywhere throughout the call today to get some additional involvement, as well as hopefully some of y'all can unmute yourselves and join in some of the discussions. First of all, just a few quick updates for the group. We did have our fourth successful webinar on March 31st that featured the awardees of recent Sea Grant competitions related to water resources. We had 42 participants from 34 different Sea Grant programs in addition to the national office. As we have in the past, we did record this. The recording is available via the National Sea Grant Law Center's YouTube video, and we will have a webinar summary forthcoming. Just as a heads up, we also have additional webinars planned for this year. On June 21st, we will actually be hosting a webinar with NIDIS, the National Integrated Drought Information System, which will talk about tools and resources, as well as ways of potentially collaborating in the future with NIDIS and different Sea Grant programs. We'll also be hosting sometime in late summer and fall a webinar on the publicly available information from the National Water Model, as well as a webinar on HABs, which has been one of the things that's ranked towards the top of interest. If you'd like to assist with the planning or the hosting of any of these webinars, please send me an email and let me know. Also, we have a poll question. This is our next question. Hopefully it's coming up for you all, that ask about what HABs topics you're most interested in hearing about on a webinar. There's so many things out there to learn and to feature. We'd like to hear from you as to what some of the things that you might like most to hear about. And you can actually just organize those and pull the items that you would like to hear most about up to the top via Poll Everywhere. So I'll give you all a minute to kind of weigh in here. Is the poll everywhere working for everyone now at this point? Yes, okay. I know there's a lot of options, so we'll give it another 30 seconds or so just to make sure that people have time to kind of look through everything. Do we have anybody that's still weighing in on the poll? Definitely have a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself. Okay. Well, not hearing from anybody. Hopefully everybody's had time to weigh their responses in. And one additional update just to let you all know, We are keeping a couple of different websites that are available, trying to track information about the Water Resources Network. The National Sea Grant Law Center has a water resources page. That's the top link. We're hosting all of the recordings of the calls and the webinars on their YouTube channel as well. That's the link in the middle. And in addition, we have a page on Mississippi-Alabama Sea Grant Consortium's website for water resources work that features not only the network, but the scoping project. And that's still not fully developed. It's still a bit of a work in progress, but these three resources are here for you all to track progress as we're going. And please let us know if you have any suggestions for things to be added that you might like to see on these websites. We'll also be attempting to link them a little bit more intricately in the future, especially as we get the Mississippi-Alabama Sea Grant site a little bit more developed. We'll link that in. But I wanted to be sure that you knew these resources were here, and this is where we're housing the videos and the summaries and those sorts of things as well. Also wanted to talk to you guys today. If you will recall, back in December, we had a prioritization survey that talked about different activities that we could prioritize as a network into 2022 and 2023. We had that survey. It went out along with a couple of other surveys. And so we actually had about 29 different respondents from 20 different programs that represented all of the regions as well. But we wanted to spend a little bit of time today and kind of give you a high level overview and then have some time to kind of talk about the results of this and where we want to go in the future. Now, I just want to point out to you that in the reminder email that went out yesterday, I also sent you a PDF of the survey, the full survey results, as well as some items for us to discuss today. So if you want, if you didn't get a chance to look at those, you want to look at this a little bit more in detail, please feel free to go and find those. But I did want to walk through with you the overall view of the summary results. We essentially had a series of Likert scale responses of potential priorities. And so I'm going to run through not only what the Likert scale was as to whether people agreed that this should be a priority or not, but also we asked people if they would be willing to work on these items. And later in the survey, once they were exposed to all the opportunities, we asked if they might be willing to lead any of these particular actions as well. So all of that is captured in these slides. I'm not going to spend a ton of results, but just so that you know, we had the first one was a continuation of the webinar series. And you'll see at the top line is anybody that disagreed that this was a something that we should continue, down to the bottom, people that strongly agreed it was something that we should. Again, then just to orient you, on the right-hand side, we asked people if they were willing to dedicate time to assist with this effort, as well as individuals that were willing to dedicate time to potentially lead the effort. They only got the option to ask to say they would participate or lead if they said they somewhat or strongly agreed that these should be a priority in the future. So these were the results from continuation of the Sea Grant Water Resources series. Then we asked people about reestablishing a connection with cooperative extension on water resources. This is something that we've talked about quite a bit over the last year or so. And so you can see that it was very, no one disagreed that this should be a priority. And we had quite a few people that were willing to potentially work on and possibly even lead this effort. Next was the idea of reinitiating a national water extension conference. We found through our discussion with this, one point of clarification is this wouldn't be a national water extension conference, it'd be a national water conference or water resources conference. It wouldn't target just extension, which is a kind of an important differentiation, but want to make that clear at this point. A lot of people neutral here, but we also had quite a few people that somewhat and strongly agreed that this was an important effort, as well as people that were willing to work on and potentially lead the effort as well. We also had the concept of a storm water green infrastructure working group. Again, a lot of potential interest, very few people that were disagreed that this might be a priority, as well as we having people that were willing to work on and or lead the effort overall. The next was start a working group to address water equity and diversity issues. A lot of potential interest here. And one of the challenges was not having very many people that might want to champion or lead this effort. So this is a piece that we'll bring attention to again in a minute. We also had this concept of working with a network for engineering with nature, which, what we might do here, varying degrees of interest or whether we should or should not do this. Only one person that might be a champion, might definitely be a champion here. The next was creating an urban river initiative. A bit of a neutral response here and a lack of leadership willingness. And then we had conduct meta-analyses of water resources and resources related issues. Interesting, we had a lot of interest, some agree, some disagree that this should be a priority. But we're going to find as we look at things a little bit differently that this was a bit of an interesting results here. When we asked people overall, and we averaged out the Likert averages of whether they agreed things should be a priority or not, you'll see there wasn't a whole lot of clear differentiation. We had working with water equity and the water resources webinar series as things that kind of reached over for which would be somewhat agreed that this should be a priority. But what's even a little bit more interesting is when we asked people about what they thought would be the top 3 priorities. You'll see here the yellow is things that people identified as the top priority. Blue was actions that people identified as the second highest priority. And the green are things that people thought were the 3rd highest priority. And again, you guys have all of this detailed out in that PDF that I sent. But when we average this out, what becomes very interesting is that 75 or 65% of the people responded that this conducting meta-analyses was either the top 1, 2, or 3 priority. And so interesting piece there. We also had really strong agreement. The next one was this idea of a working group on water equity and diversity issues, which, as we know, is a really critical issue across the network right now. So I want to ask, so as a leadership team, we met week before last and kind of talked again about these results and understanding that there was a lot going on back in December and January. We kind of discussed this a little bit more and wanted to ask you all yet again where we want to kind of focus our efforts over the next couple of years. And as a part of this, we actually went in and we talked about each of those different options, what we had as potential champions for each of these concepts, and how we might want to group this and for the discussion today. We actually, for the time being, we dropped off the working with the engineering with nature as well as the Urban Water Institute, just because we didn't have a champion and they weren't clear priorities. We did have these 5 topics on here that were things that we were able to actually put on paper what they might do, what they might look like, timelines, as well as clear champions for these specific items. And that was in the second attachment to the email that I sent out yesterday. So you can actually look at that, find out a little bit more of what the outcomes might be, what the activity might look like in and of itself, as well as timelines. The one thing that we really struggled with is while starting a working group to address water equity and diversity issues was something that seemed very important. We don't have a clear champion, and we know this is important, and we see this as something that we'd like to continue to leave as a possible option, but really looking for a group of people to maybe possibly help us to raise this up, figure out what it might look like and how we might do this. So for the time being, I want to ask you that if this working group to address water equity and diversity is something that you think you might be interested in, please put your name in the chat. Send me an email, send me and Steph an email. Just let us know if this is something that you think you might like to do, because it is a really critical action and we're just not quite sure how to get it done or what it might look like right now. So with this, I want to actually kind of open things up for a little bit more of a discussion. We have in essence 5 issues that or actions that we sent to you again, the summaries via the attachment yesterday, that have very clear visions for what they might look like, timelines for what they may include, as well as the outcomes on them. And what we'd like you to do is to actually spend maybe a minute or two and rank these. It's not a final ranking. It's just, again, trying to get a gauge, but we also want to open it for discussion. If people have things that they'd like to add here, please feel free to add information in the chat, unmute yourself and raise any topics that you might like. Let us know what you're thinking, and if you have questions, we'd be happy to kind of field those as well. If anybody has any questions about what's actually kind of included in any of these, please feel free to also ask that question, because we can talk about that. Like I said, while you might have it in your email, if you have any questions about what those might look like, most of us on here can probably speak to that and answer any questions. If any of you all that have helped to develop these particular concepts or on the leadership team that want to speak up, please also do so. Any input that you have would be appreciated.
Karen, it might not apply directly to this slide, but since you revisited it a time or two in our discussion so far, I'm wondering if we know what the Sea Grant DEIJ group is doing with regard to engaging on water quality. And maybe that's an intersection. I know you mentioned that I would characterize the situation as not a lack of leadership due to unwillingness, but just maybe people not being able to add that to their plate at this time. So I'm wondering if that might be a fruitful intersection for us.
Thank you, Mary. And that was one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when the leadership team met, is that trying to connect with that group may be one of those things that we try to prioritize. Unfortunately, I certainly was not able to do that over the last week and a half, but it's an area that we definitely would like to try and incorporate into however we envision that going forward. And also looking for, quite honestly, one of the low-hanging fruit was trying to look at the list to understand who might be on our group already, who's also serving on that group. or participating in that group. Steph, is there anything in the chat that I've missed that's relevant here as well?
No, Mary's question was the only one and she asked it.
Okay. Well, please, again, if there's anything on here that you feel particularly passionate about, that you would love to, participate in or see move forward, also, please feel free to put that information in the chat. We can follow up with you afterwards, or feel free to email me and we'll connect you and definitely want to look for groups that we can bring in to help to carry these things forward as we go. So with that, we have another question here that, this idea of potentially doing a meta-analysis or doing multiple meta-analyses in the future is somewhat intriguing. We were talking about what this might look like, what the most important topics might be. I have spoken with Carolyn Foley from Indiana, Illinois Sea Grant. She has, she's willing to help us in this realm, if you will. However, we kind of need to start narrowing things down if we do this. One of the major benefits is that it could potentially help us to prioritize and target extension and education work in the future. However, it's, again, as we've always been challenged in water resources, it's such a huge topic. So are there topics that you think we might want to do a meta-analysis on? And then, this is structured so that you should be able to upvote anything that people put out. So if you like a topic that somebody adds, you can certainly upvote that. What we're really looking at here in the big scheme of things is, again, what these can do, it's a bit different than a regular review because you're actually doing a quantitative analysis that leverages the data from individual studies. And it can offer results that are more generalizable, unbiased answers to a question, a little bit different than a typical lit review. If there's types of things here that we think we would like to pursue, timeline, again, this is something that Carolyn has said that she would be willing to try to help lead. And it might take us until maybe even Sea Grant Week to really narrow in on a specific question. But ultimately, we'd probably be looking for 4 to 6 people that could maybe dedicate 4 to 6 hours a week for maybe 6 to 8 months in order to kind of have a manuscript that might be ready for publication or for review, to send out for peer review. So if there's any topics on here that you think might be really helpful in your work or those sorts of things, please let us know. And if you're interested in potentially working on any of these topics, it would be really critical. It would have to be one of those things that we had support. And if several individuals that would be willing to help with, sorting data, pulling data, writing, finding those papers and those sorts of things. So, please think about topics and add your name to the chat if this is something you think you might be interested in working on. Also, if you have ideas, feel free to speak up.
Karen, I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions. Are you envisioning this meta-analysis to be a traditional scholarly manuscript for publication, or is this a internal meta-analysis of the Sea Grant portfolio for our edification? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get what this is for, because some of these, there are some national and international committees and other entities. I don't see it here, but for example, there's one currently being developed on human health impacts of microplastics. I was intrigued by this, whomever put up the food web impacts of microplastics. So just curious if you could clarify that.
Sure. So a lot of this came out of the meta-analyses that actually, I think Carolyn led on the one you were referring to as far as human impacts from contaminants in microplastics. The vision at this point in time was actually doing more of a traditional research manuscript, something that would be peer reviewed. If there's interest in and maybe doing something that's a little bit more of internal white papers within Sea Grant, I don't know that that would be off the table. I think it might be a little bit different. And so that might be something that we can talk about. But I do, the original intent behind this was for more of a research manuscript.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions, Mary. If you have it, chances are somebody else probably does too. So clarification is always good. Okay. Is anybody still working on the poll everywhere question or have any thoughts on this? All right, well, just saw an additional item come in, so I'll give it another little bit so people can upvote if they want. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward. Before I actually jump into the next topic, I just want to just provide an additional opportunity. If anybody has any thoughts on those possible priority actions or things that we might want to consider as we're looking at prioritizing efforts over the next couple of years. All right, if anything pops up, feel free to put it in the chat or send me an email, Stephanie an email. We're always open to thoughts and ideas. So feel free to send those forward. Next, we're just going to talk about there's some existing and upcoming water resources network opportunities we want to make sure that you're aware of. The first is the Sea Grant Water Resources Network is actually now a member of the University's Council on Water Resources. This is a paid membership that is a part of the scoping project that I'm working on that is a service to the network. And as a part of this membership, we actually have 7 spots for delegates as the role of the Sea Grant Water Resources lead. And this grant, I'm actually taking one of those. So we have 6 additional spots for delegates. A couple of the bonuses that that come with being a delegate, one of our delegates for the UCOWR is that number one, you get a reduced rate to your registration for the national conference. The national conference this year is actually in June. It's going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. And in addition, if you think you might be wanting to publish in their journal and contemporary water research and education, you also get a reduced price in the publication fee. We want to put this out to anyone in the network Now, I want to note that if you happen to be at a university that is a member of UCOWR, we would ask that you would go ahead and you would work through your university for those discounts. But any delegate within the Sea Grant network can also get that. We don't have a university per se; it's our network. So for us, it would just be the 6 delegates that get those benefits, if you will. But we want to put out, if you're interested in being a delegate, please let us know. Please either put it in the chat now, send me an email at your earliest convenience. The one thing that I am going to ask is that we would like to prioritize right now delegates that are intend to present at this year's annual conference. And so that we can help those individuals. If you're a part of this group and you know you're going to the conference and you're going to be presenting and it would help you, your university isn't a member, please let us know. Then we can definitely work with you on that. People that are presenting, we would want to give first priority to. If you plan to attend the conference, but you're not presenting and we still have some open spots, we would definitely want to help you as well. So just kind of opening that up, right now we will give prioritization for those interested in this year's conference, but then we'll open it up beyond that. Are there any questions about UCOWR, the membership, the delegate positions, anything along those lines? And again, if you're interested, please send me an email or put a message in the chat and we'll work with you on that. Next, Lacey, I'm going to actually hand this over to you to talk to us a little bit about the National Sea Grant Office strategic planning process and opportunities for people to engage with that.
Thanks, Karen, and hi, everybody. So I just wanted to give a brief update on the National Sea Grant Office strategic plan. And really, it's just a reminder, as I'm sure everyone has heard these before, but we have one more of the goal focus listening sessions tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then there will be a last more general strategic planning listening session on May 4th. And I will include a link to where you can register for those in the chat. And then a few other important dates are related to due dates for drafts. The national plan will release their first draft in June. And then in August, programs drafts are due. September, notice we don't put due dates exactly for us. That's on purpose. we are going to put out the second draft after receiving comments. That'll go out in September, hopefully on the earlier side. And then September 30th, final draft for the national plan will be released. And then October 26th, programs final plans will be due. So as always, just let me know if you have any questions about the national strategic planning process. The listening sessions have gone really well so far. We've received a lot of really great feedback from folks, and we're working on compiling that information to try to, just get everything that we received in an orderly, put it, in an orderly way somewhere. And so it's going to be really fun to get all of that together and create something that is useful and brings all those ideas together. Thanks all.
Thank you, Lacey. And Lacey, do you want to go ahead and put in the chat the web link to where people can see more information, just in case? I'm sure, hopefully they've seen it before, but also, okay, perfect. I just wanted, so we've talked, the leadership team has talked about whether there's information that we should convey as a network to the national office in regards to water resources as a part of the strategic planning process. And so just adding one more opportunity in the poll everywhere, if you have suggestions from a water resources perspective that the network might want to provide as thoughts or recommendations to the national office, we just wanted to open this time up. Also feel free to unmute yourself. If you don't want to do poll everywhere, you can also put something in the chat. Just want to kind of open it up just in case there might be anything else that we want to think about from the network perspective in regards to the National Office strategic planning process. Well, we give people a chance to answer this question or put anything that they might want to into the chat or the poll everywhere. I have noticed a couple of things in the chat regarding the UCOWR delicate spots. One thing I failed to mention, Hawaii Sea Grant is also a member of UCOWR. They are the only other Sea Grant program specifically that is a member, but several of our universities are members as a whole. So, if you're working with Hawaii Sea Grant, most definitely you already have those benefits. And we do have a few people, I know Jess has mentioned, and Michael said that a partner of his are presenting at UCOWR. So please let us know. We'd love to work with you and try to help you out on that. So and Jess also mentioned early bird registration, I believe, ends at the end of this month, maybe even on the 30th. So that'll be one thing to take advantage of if you're interested in going to that conference in June of this year. If any of the comments that are coming in on the poll everywhere elicit thoughts, again, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak up too. Lacey, at one point we talked about trying to host a listening session that was specific to water resources. Do you know if that's something that there's still interest in trying to do from the national office perspective?
Definitely happy to. We haven't received anybody's specific request for that yet, but if folks are interested, then now is a good time to let me know. I think some folks have been joining in on the other listening sessions, so it's not that we haven't been represented and contributing. But if anybody wants a specific one just for water resources, we can certainly set that up.
Okay, great. So please feel free to enter into the chat if that's something that you'd have interest in us setting up, specifically a water resources related listening session with the national office as well. Is there anyone that's still pondering this question? If so, we'll wait another minute or so. Okay, well, then we will jump on to a few other opportunities that we just wanted to be sure that you were all aware of. Upcoming here soon should be the Sea Grant Week call for abstracts. You may have noticed, those of you that have been alerted to the webpage that does exist, currently that's saying the call for abstracts will close on the 28th of April. I'm pretty sure that that's going to change, but the actual call should be coming out soon. Now, it's my understanding, and Steph, please jump in if you have any additional information here, but it's my understanding that they have fewer spots this year than maybe we've had in past years.
Yes. So for anybody who went to Sea Grant Week in Portland, I think we had maybe as many as 5 concurrent sessions. And in the survey feedback following Sea Grant Week, most people said that was like, they felt too conflicted about not being able to get to the sessions that they wanted to and things like that. So for the way that the hotel contract has been negotiated and for Sea Grant Week in Cleveland in September, it's my understanding that there's probably only going to be maybe 3 concurrent sessions or 4. So we're just not going to have as many slots available for that. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think it might be good to collaborate more on some session proposals than maybe groups did going into Portland.
Okay, great. And if you're interested in trying to collaborate on some water resources related sessions, please, let us know, put a message in the chat. We are happy to try and coordinate some of that across the network. We definitely, one of the things that I've heard and this listening sessions I've been doing for the scoping project is that people would like to hear more about what is happening and how we're working together on water resources. So happy to help facilitate that process. And then I know that one of the things I'm hoping to do is to do a not a listening session, but a report out on what we've heard thus far on those results from the scoping project as well. So
yeah, another thing to keep in mind, I think this will be all laid out in the call for abstracts, but over the years, the Sea Grant Week sessions have kind of moved more towards professional development and really wanting to see kind of takeaways from the different sessions. So kind of moving away from just that reporting out like, hey, this is what we're doing, towards providing some training or opportunities for networking. So just kind of keep that in mind as you start thinking about sessions.
thanks, Tiff. That's some really valuable information. Okay. Any other things on Sea Grant Week? Right. A couple of other last updates for you all. We are going to be transitioning the Water Resource Network email list to a listserv, and that will actually enable anybody to send messages across the network via that listserv. If for some reason you're hearing about these not being on the current distribution list, please let us know if you'd like to be added to that. But we will make that transition probably sometime over the next month or so. And in addition, one of the things that we wanted to begin doing with our next all hands call is that what we want to do is a couple weeks in advance, I'll be sending a call, a reminder to the network or to our network. So our listserv, which is currently just under 80 people across the network. Please feel free to forward any network news and let people know if they want to join us. They can do so for sure, but we're putting out a call a couple of weeks before these, and when I say a call, I mean an email asking people to provide any input if there's updates that you would like to provide on these future calls. So if there's information that you'd like to provide about opportunities or maybe a project or something like that, that we have just a couple of minutes that we will make available to anybody that wants to provide those updates and give out additional information to the larger group. So please be on the lookout for that coming down the pike. With those done, I just want to open it up right now to see if there's anybody that has any additional items or things that they would like to bring up to everyone. Okay, well, all right then. Thank you guys all for joining us. And I guess we'll give you back about 11 minutes of your hour. And really appreciate seeing everybody, and we'll look forward to the next time. So.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.